Um, I'd like to welcome the three presenters, Giulio Castelli and Isaac Monjo Chavula and Harish Davara to this meeting on this webinar on Let's Recharge the Wells. The first speaker will be Giulio Castelli, who is a researcher at the Water Harvesting Lab in the Department of Agriculture, Food and Environment and Forestry of the University of Florence, working on water harvesting, water resource management, and of course the participatory approach required to develop all these aspects. A lot of his work is related to the Mediterranean and to Africa. He also is a board member of IRHA, of the IRHA committee, and an associate researcher at the Environmental Governance and Territorial Development Hub of the University of Geneva. Giulio, it's all yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Han. And today I'm going to give a short presentation. If I understand correctly, I have like around 20 minutes on sand dams. So sand dams are water harvesting technology that has also many connection with aquifer, especially shallow aquifers, which are currently very underdeveloped. I mean, there is wide knowledge in some part of Africa, and there is also wide, basically, possibility for their application, but still you have many challenges for their upscaling. So I hope you can see my full screen presentation now. Just give me a feedback on this.
Yes, perfect.
It's good. Yeah.
Thank you. And so the first question is why sand dam? So what's a sand dam? How does it work? And why we are talking about sand and not about water? The question is this. The question is this, and the answer is this one. You see, so this is a sand dam, and at the first sight it can appear like a failed infrastructure. So a dam that had completely be silted up by sediment. Now there is a specification that you have to do here. That sediment is not like random sediment. That sediment is sand. And if some of you have experience in arid context, you might know that usually in the sandy riverbed of ephemeral rivers, so rivers that maybe have water for 3 or 4 months over the whole year, you can dig at no cost shallow wells and access the water that is basically flowing under the surface. And you might also know that in these rivers, there is no way to manage like a normal dam because first of all, you have a lot of sediment transport. So anyways, the dam will be filled up, and also there is a lot of evaporation because the climate is very arid. And sometimes it's also difficult to have water protection from livestock because livestock is going around, and usually livestock is attracted by water ponding because there is no water around. So what is a sand dam beside the pictures, and how does it work? So sand dams are impermeable walls built on ephemeral rivers to trap sandy sediments. And the water that is trapped in the sand pores creates an artificial aquifer. So you see here a diagram. You can't do sand dams everywhere, but in some specific situation, a situation that is quite frequent in some arid countries, you can have this setup. So you can have quite shallow rock compacted soil, and a sandy river, a river that mainly transports sand. In this case, what you will do is to create an artificial aquifer. So you build a concrete wall or a stone wall. You wait for the sand to sediment upstream. And then every time that you have water in the river, then this aquifer that is made by sand, so it's very easy to be replenished because the sediments are very coarse and there is quite a huge amount of large pores. So every time you have a flood, the aquifer is replenished, and sometimes also the aquifer extends horizontally. So it's a twofold technology because it allows water harvesting in the soil and also groundwater recharge. At the same time, the water is under the ground, so it's protected somehow by by the porosity of water. So you know that the water in the soil has a little bit of filtration, is not exposed to pathogens in the atmosphere, and it's also protected by evaporation. What people do around sand dams is to drill very shallow wells to access water. Okay, or maybe if you have wells around the sand dams, these are refilled by this effect. Now, I mean, in my research group, we use this definition of water harvesting, which has been defined by Dee Bowes, who is a senior researcher at ICARDA in Syria, who define water harvesting as the process of concentrating precipitation through runoff and storing it for beneficial use. And in this case, we have what we call a macro catchment water harvesting technology. So technology that collects the runoff from a small catchment and it store it underground. Okay, so in these cases, the catchment upstream the sand dam is not very big. It's still a portion of a dry river, and the storage is subsurface in the soil. The time scale of storing this water is quite long. It's from days to months, thanks to the fact that the storage media is underground, so you have a protection from evaporation, but also the storage is potentially quite large because that's all the underground part of the river plus the riverbanks. And you see here, this is another scheme that show you how people can access these waters. So basically through hand pumps or through small scoop holes in the stream riverbed, which is actually a little bit dynamic. So I don't know, probably now you can see my laser pointer. So the idea is that year by year, there is an additional deposition upstream, so this layer grows. So unless the sand dam is very old, it's not the best solution to drill a hole with some pump implemented in the middle of the river because you have adjustments of the geomorphology. But in this case, the stabilized wells are on the banks. And very important, of course, you have limitation. The bottom layer, of course, is not fully impermeable everywhere. It's not a layer of cement, of course. So you have, of course, to take into account some um, loss from the system, which are also basically recharge to the deep groundwater. So how do you work with these sand dams in time? Because they need time. Okay, the upstream volume is not filled with sand immediately. You need to wait. So basically, you create the concrete dam, and sometimes you want also to have a pipe at the bottom of this concrete dam. Then year by year, you have water arriving, and with the water, also the sediments arrive. So in the first year, maybe the dam is working as a normal dam, but later on, it works as an artificial aquifer. The effect that you see immediately is a greening of the riverbanks because, of course, water is being there and is infiltrating in the soil. So these technology are also useful for landscape restoration somehow. And these are the important elements. So the concrete dam body, the wings that should be done very carefully because these rivers, they have a huge power. They are flooded. It's not an hydrology like in Switzerland with normal flow every year. And like when it rains in the arid area, it rains with huge intensities. So you have a lot of discharge. And also the spillways are very important. Now, I'm not giving the details here, but the spillways, meaning this part of the dam where the normal flow is passing over, they should be very, very well designed because you want only sand to be upstream the dam. You don't want smaller sediment. So usually what you do is to create a selective spillway that as the hydraulics of the spillway allow the sedimentation of sand, but also allow a sufficient velocity to let the other sediments passing over. Okay, so basically there is a twofold role of these dams. You have to build them in rivers where the sediment is sand, but also you want to be sure that the sediment that is going over the river is sand. Therefore, you also build a spillway that select the good sediment to be basically brought downstream. And also one thing that should be remarkable and should be noticed is that this can be also dynamic structure. Okay, in some countries in the world, initially sand dam are basically built and then they can be raised. Okay, this is also common for normal dams, but sand dams are a small scale solution. Like they are quite large for rainwater harvesting technologies, but they are still small if compared to normal dams. So it's relatively easy to make them taller. Now we should study the geographical distribution of sand dams. So which countries have some sand dams in them, and which countries they have the potential to be equipped with sand dams. So you see that most of the sand dams are reportedly in the purple countries, and the majority, over 90% of the sand dams that are in the world are in Kenya. But actually, it's very interesting to see how some technologies that are not called sand dams, they are actually sand dams considering how they work. And this happened, for instance, in Angola. So in Angola, there was not an evidence in report about the presence of sand dams, but thanks to our research, we find out that you have sand dams in Angola, and they are actually used by the population. So this is very interesting. Besides this, you see that basically sand dams are implemented mainly in Kenya and in a small number of other countries, but large parts of the world, the North Mediterranean, Middle East, and the Sahel, they have the potential of implementing sand dams. So basically, like as I mentioned, like this is one in Angola, which is actually not properly functioning. Okay, it's a sand dam that has some breakings, but uh, in Angola, we found many of them that were actually built in the 60s. You have a lot of these um, technologies around the world that are unknown because they are small scale, but they are still used by pastoralists because they can really be a sustainable way of managing water in the landscape using shallow aquifers. Of course, there are many success cases, and the benefit of Sendence have been documented mainly in Kenya. Actually, the main outcomes of Sendems are, of course, a reduction of the time used for collecting water every day. These are techniques that work even in remote areas. So, on average, some studies reported a reduction from 3 hours to 15 minutes a day for collecting water. But also, it was reported, of course, an increase of agricultural production. This is another study that we develop ourselves in Ethiopia, and in this area, of course, an arid area of the north of Ethiopia, the build of a sand dam produce like an extension of maize production, so the implementation of irrigated maize production, but also the introduction of fruit trees. Now, this talk is also to analyze a little bit the key aspects and the challenges for the send down functioning. And the, these are basically the four main challenges for data implementation. First of all, the siting. So, these technologies, they work in particular environments, arid areas, areas where the rivers are sandy and where the flow allow only the sand to sediment. So selecting the best sites where to build effective structure is key. You have multiple methods, but actually you have to do a very good GIS, geographical information system studies to um, select the best sites. Then the construction. As I mentioned, the spillway is critical, but also these dams should be constructed to avoid damages by the flooding. So this is another key element. It's very important the community engagement because basically, as in many areas of the world, you are introducing a water reservoir where no water was available. So you need to establish a clear understanding of land and water rights. But also you need to establish some management procedure for the wells that you are going to build. And then, of course, you have all the challenges related by the proper use of the infrastructure and the regular maintenance. Just a few concluding remarks, more specifically about what we are doing. So our laboratory is also producing a global database of sand dams, including also their basically geological features and their distributions. So you see here how we basically did in 2021 an international workshop on sand dams, and then we involve governments, NGOs, university, and we collected about 1,000 sand dams all around the world. And then we basically realize a review and collection of data with Google Earth. We calculated different basically different features of the sand dams, the length of the dam, the width of the stream, and the throwback area. So the area of the sand deposit be behind them. If you know Sandems or similar structures, please get in touch because we are still enriching this database to know where these solutions are applied. And basically, we also publish a more detailed analysis of the challenges and future opportunities for sustainable water management through Sandems. This paper is available, but if you cannot access it, please drop me an email and I will be very happy to send it to you. So that's all. I hope I raised some interest about this topic. I think I was within the 20 minutes, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giulio, for a very nice presentation. I suppose it was very clear to everyone with the nice diagrams and photographs. Are there any questions at this time? I have not seen. I only have seen a comment in the chat.
Yeah, if I may, I would have a question
Yes,
myself.
Florian, go ahead.
So, hello everyone. Thanks, Giulio, for the nice presentation. So, Florian Bilza from RAHA. I just have a question about like the impact. I mean, for me, it's mostly like what I've like been taught is about dams, so normal dam, water dam. So about the water impact on the downhill, so on the flow, on the river flow downhill, so downstream of the dam. What are the impacts since they are not like permanent rivers? I would think, or like non like irregular rivers. What are the impact in comparison to normal dam or like on the downstream flow?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the open points. It's related by the setting that you have in your river. Usually, like in these kind of rivers with these kind of structures, there is not like a huge impact as you would have expected with other type of climatologies. Because here you have, it's true that you don't have water throughout the year, but you have flooding. Okay, so when you have flooding, even if you keep a little bit of the water within the sand dam, then a huge amount is passing over. So you don't have reportedly huge upstream, downstream problems. Also, of course, it's always a small scale structure, and even if you are keeping water underground, actually you always have some seepage on the sides and below the dam, and so you don't also retain all the water underground as well. But like there are some question marks related to the implementation of like a series of sand dam in cascading. So like in that case, if you have 5 or 10, maybe you could have some kind of effect downstream, but since the technology is not studied very much so far, you don't have a clear indication on this. So one sand dam has basically no effect. If you have a system of them, this should be studied.
Very good. That's a clear
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
explanation.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Then I will
Yeah.
just only make a yes, please.
Well, I just want to find out from Julio, why is Malawi not on the list? And is there any effort that we can have so that in Malawi we also test this technology?
Yeah, like I'm not sure that Malawi is not on the list, so it's not on the map. But this map is not made by us, and it's quite an old reference. So I believe because in this case the rationale was basically to check where where the country is quite an arid country, and Malawi has arid parts, but they are not the majority. So I do know that you have also some sand rivers in Malawi, but mainly in the south. So I think this was the reason why this map has not Malawi included. But if you want, I can check on the database, and we also know that Sandems Worldwide has a project there. Actually, we are in contact with Sandems Worldwide for the database, but I don't know how many Sandems they have sent to us. If you want, I can check quickly on the database how much Sandems we found in Malawi, and just give me a minute. But I'm not sure that they are reported because this depends on Sandems Worldwide.
Okay. Maybe I can get information later on. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I
if
think
you
one of the issues is, of course, that like the example from Angola, sometimes it has been forgotten that something like a sand dam, something similar to a sand dam, was in existence. And so you see, sometimes indeed, as the picture is old, it may take a little bit of time. Because from my own experience, I see that Brazil, northeastern Brazil, is not there. I'm fairly sure that I've seen them. Northern Uganda, Karamoja, I have actually been on them. And also from long time ago, 1980s, in Burjwada, in near Nagpur, in Maharashtra, I've also seen that there were of these type of structures, but maybe Water later on will be able to highlight some of these points.
Yeah, actually, if you want like the numbers that we have one reported Sandem like built as a Sandem in Brazil. We have 10 in India. We have 5 in Malawi, and we have 7 in Uganda. So these are the data that we have now that have been collected so far.
It is good to know these things in the sense that I suppose that if you have visited a sand dam, if you can visit a sand dam because it is nearby, then at least gives you a better feeling on how it could or could be done. Anyway.
Yeah, keep in mind that like for instance, there is a huge amount of number, like 893 structure, which are in Kenya for the moment. These are the numbers.
Thank you very much, Giulio, for the very nice presentation, and of course the fact that you have a lot of other information, including a database. That's always good to know. I would like to move on to the next presenter from Tijeni in Malawi, Isaac Chavula. Isaac is the director of Tijeni in Malawi itself, working on deep bed farming, promotion of deep bed farming. He has over 25 years of experience with a variety of NGOs and also the government, implementing projects on food security and sustainable livelihoods. He has been a lecturer at Lilongwe University and also in the University of Lurio in Mozambique. Isaac, please go ahead. Can you share your screen?
Thank you very much. Okay. So, are you able to see?
Yes. You have to enlarge the screen, but anyway, yes, it is there.
Yeah, I'll make it in a presentation mode.
Excellent.
So I think this page you covered very well. So let's just move on to the first page of the presentation. This is about the deep bed farming and how it is contributing to the buildup of aquifers. So basically, I'll give the background of DBF in short, but that's the deep bed farming. So I'll be using shortcut to save on time. So I'll give the brief background to say why the DBF. And, I'll also talk about the innovation itself, the deep-bed farming, because I need you to get the real understanding of it. And that will also help in understanding how it works and how it is contributing to the aquifer restoration. I'll also dwell on the importance of land management vis-a-vis the adoption of deep bed. And I'll give just a case of a successful initiative that was because of adoption of deep bed farming, and then also dwell a bit on the benefits of aquifer recharge in as far as our economy in Malawi is concerned. So in terms of how deep bed farming came about, Malawi has been an economy that is dependent on agriculture, and as such, majority, I should say, more than 85% of Malawians do cultivate their food and then also sell. But over decades of use of hand hoe and trampling on the soils that is cultivated, an impermeable layer has been forming and is there across the country to a depth of about 10 to 30 centimeters. So this depth, this hard pan or impermeable layer of soil is causing crop failure, actually by hindering development of roots and hindering also of water infiltration. So this also causes a lot of soil loss because once the rains are coming, then the topsoil is saturated. And once this is saturated, it is vulnerable to move off the field, and that is through surface runoff. So on average, Malawi loses 29 or more than 29 metric tons of topsoil. And this topsoil is fertile topsoil, and from a single hectare, which means by multiplying by millions of hectares of land that is under cultivation, Malawi is losing it. So when the soil is dislodged from its original place, then it goes with water to destroy now the reservoirs and rivers and ecosystem. And just to demonstrate, to the left-hand side, you can see the fields that have been cultivated for ages, and the bare hardened pan is exposed after removing the topsoil. The picture below is a demonstration of how the ridges are aligned wrongly. In fact, poor cultivation is the main cause of this hard and impermeable soil layer. Now, then, it was necessary to decide on how to reverse this, because this was causing a lot of loss in yield, to the extent that most farmers in Malawi, on average, are harvesting less than 2 tons of maize being our staple food, from a hectare. So less than 2 metric tons. Potentially, Malawi can harvest up to over 10 tons of maize. So you can see the loss there is so huge. As a nation which depends on agriculture, this cannot be condoned. So there was need to now create deep bed farming, which in my view, I'm saying is the largest rainwater harvesting facility ever. Why I'm saying so is because land under cultivation is now converted to a rainwater harvesting facility, such that we create furrows and beds along contour lines. So these furrows and beds are having boxed, and then the furrow ends are also closed. Depending on slope, the upper side of the field can have structures like swales, like graded bands, or indeed other structures that must control movement of water and actually harvest the water to infiltrate in the grounds. So I will not bother explaining the dimensions, but just appreciate that the furrows are wide enough and big enough to contain any storm in Malawi. And the top of the bed is wide enough to have 2 rows of maize at recommended spacing of 75 centimeters. Now, these structures, this is a cross section, and let's look at the actual field as it is. This is a field that was made of deep bed field that was constructed using a tractor. We wanted to do this because we wanted to demonstrate that it can also be done at large scale. The benefit is that this is done once. Once you do this construction of rainwater harvesting facilities and also for planting, you've done it. You will not have to go back with your tractor and redo it. No. Or what you need to do is to nurture the soils by adding a lot of organic matter and planting a lot more mixtures of soil, crops like legumes, cereals, and so forth, to make sure you maintain the health status of the soils. So what happens when rains come? The next slide will show us how the rains are harvested. Now, with deep bed farming, more than 90%, actually precisely an average of 92% of rainwater is harvested, giving us a very small fraction of it that can become surface runoff. Thereby, deep bed farming cuts down surface runoff and controls erosion, and its destructive nature is mitigated. It also restores aquatic biodiversity. Remember, surface runoff leads to erosion. Leads to flooding of streams, and then a lot of damage is happening downstreams. So by allowing more water to be harvested, more water is infiltrated in soil, making soils moist and available for crop production, but also boosting soil health activities. Remember that microbes and macrobes work very well under moist and warm soils. So the soils become very conducive for production. And also that process restores aquifer and streams. So you can actually appreciate maybe an example first with the pictures that we have on my left. The top part is done by hand, by the whole hand. Hand hose. So you have farmers having fields that are collecting water, as you can see. These are not made by tractors, but they've made it by using a hand hoe. Down there we have a field to the left. It's a field on the conventional ridge, and to the right it is a field under deep bed farming. So this was done deliberately to compare. It's the same field belonging to the same farmer, and planting was done at the same time, the same day. Also, other features like other treatments like weeding and also application of manure was done. But look at the difference. Under the deep bed farming, we have healthy crop growing. Underneath, if you see properly, you can see water accumulating. This is demonstrating that water is being harvested. And at the same time, look at the ridge farming. You see that there is no water in the furrows, yet there was rain at the same time. Where has that water gone? Is gone away through surface runoff, because as soon as it hits the compacted soil layer, then it can't infiltrate anymore, but it will have to go out of the field. So deep bed farming is there to infiltrate water into the soil and store it for crop production, but also to feed the aquifers. The next slide is an illustration of how is deep bed farming interacting with the hydrological cycle, just to demonstrate where is deep bed farming acting in the process. Number one is by cutting off soil surface runoff, this part. And then secondly, you have, it encourages infiltration. So you can see down there, just to demonstrate that there are aquifers and streams, they are recharged because of these two interventions. I also want to demonstrate how much water from the rains can be harvested by deep bed farming per hectare. So we see that in Malawi, we are receiving on average, a range of 800 to 2,000 millimeters of annual rainfall. And so depending on the regions, these variations are there. But of interest is how much per hectare is received. So we receive about 10,000 cubic meters, which is about 10,000 milliliters of water. Now, per hectare, it means that much is received. But then for in Malawi, we are receiving that much, but assuming 1,000 millimeters of water per hectare is received. Sorry, that means if we receive 10,000 cubic meters of rainwater per hectare, sorry, I've lost my slide. Okay, for moderate rainfall, it's like 1,000 millimeters over a hectare is received. So let's calculate based on the 10,000 cubic meters of rainwater that we receive. If DBET is able to harvest 92%, it means that we will have 9,200 cubic meters readily available, settling in the field and getting infiltrated into the soil, leaving out only 8% of 10,000 cubic meters, which is very, very little to cause serious damage through erosion. That is why I am saying that deep farming is the largest ever rainwater harvesting infrastructure that can be built if good number of farmers convert their fields to this deep farming. So let me also talk about the importance of land management, because this goes hand in hand with the deep farming as a tool to manage our fields properly. You will have soil health being enhanced, conservation of our water resources, because we now have plenty water, and deep farming is just one best tool with contour farming as other practices that can blend very well with conservation with deep farming. So we'll have biodiversity restored in areas like dams and rivers, which might have been destroyed if we did not go onto deep farming. Erosion is also controlled, thereby putting our soils to proper use. And then we become better climate resilient societies, because we now have better air, because carbon will be sequestered through deep farming fields, but also we'll become more resilient because our crops will be resisting better to soil moisture stress because of drought or otherwise. We also maximize the yields, because deep farming more than doubles the yields. And then also we will plan better if we have technologies like deep farming, which help farmers to manage water and soils better. So sustainable development will be achieved. So this is a case that we have. I just want to go through a case of Mvula, Gospel Mvula. He started DBF, and within 6 years, he had converted 0.6 hectares of land that was abandoned back to agricultural productivity. And from that, he harvested maize, which he sold at more than 2,000 US dollars. And he managed to buy a motorbike out of that in 2021. And then he also bought water well. He used that to irrigate land, another patch of land which he abandoned, but under deep farming, it was restored, and it's a 0.4 hectare. Now he put that under garlic and the paprika production and irrigation. Eventually, after sales, he made that much, 2,500 US dollars from the sales. Now he was planning to advance in investment, and he wanted to get into taxi business. Now, this is just a demonstration of how household can get transformed if they get onto the deep farming. But let's now look at the importance of recharging our aquifers and purifying water, the water quality becoming better. We will have reliable water sources for agriculture, industry, as well as households. In Malawi, there is a report that was published recently indicating 80% of Malawians depending on groundwater. We will also be drought resistant. Actually, Malawi is subject to drought sometimes. And then with deep bed farming, we will recover our wetlands. We'll also have, we'll stand better under droughts, and groundwater will also provide as a backup for irrigation. Improved water storage efficiency is also something that we achieve under deep bed farming, because when you recharge the aquifers, it becomes naturally cost-effective way of storing water, but also purifying water. Flood mitigation is also something that we manage to do with deep bed farming, because after cutting off 92% of rainwater, what happens with the small amount of water that becomes surface runoff, you can't have flash floods with that. And then we also have sustainable agriculture, because steady supply of water means steady supply of water for agricultural production. So the picture that we have now on the right, we have the deep bed farming field that has got very good healthy crop, very resilient to stress after 3 weeks of dry spell. But look at what is happening on the ridges. Conventional ridges, the maize is wilting, and we can't expect high yield there. So this is just to demonstrate the significance of using deep bed farming to restore what we need most, water. So we have challenges, of course, in promotion of deep bed. There are some challenges, because basically we must break the hard pan to 30 centimeters deep. Now that notion of breaking the hard pan, some say, no, it's labor intensive. So because of that, we have come up with solutions to say we must break the hard pan when time is allowing. That is, soon after harvesting, we must break the hard pan. And also, we have introduced the abstract micro tractors so that we can use that mechanically to break the hard pan. Another challenge was slow coverage of whole catchment to effectively control soil erosion. Now, the solution we are implementing now, this is also government of Malawi's approach to adopt, to cover whole catchment with deep bed farming. So that is what we have on the ground. And I thank you very much, Ziko Mokwambiri Yeo. More information can be got from the website I put down there. So that's where you find a lot of cases, stories, and what have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isaac, for an inspiring presentation of the potential of deep bed farming. It has been quite successful in Malawi, and I'm sure that some of the participants today will be thinking, how can they use it in their situation? Sometimes it may be a similar situation as in Malawi. Sometimes you have to adapt it a little bit, but the principles are, of course, the same. You break the soil and allow the water to infiltrate. You reduce runoff, and that, of course, is in many instances very important. Not in the least because a place like Malawi is suffering from annually serious flood problems. So there is a business case to be made, and that's also the reason why the government has taken it up as the way forward for farmers. Florian, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Isaac, for your wonderful presentation. I also really like the concrete example, like of the successful story and how they grow, like from deep bed to like increasing the revenue and like growing bigger and bigger. I had a comment or also a question, because I've been during my studies, I've been like encountering like another method, which is really fairly like the deep bed, but it was called raised bed. And it was in practice in India in the Ganj basin. It was where they were like intercropping rice and wheat. So the same practice with like a deep beds, like raised beds. So they were like planting the rice when the ground was overflowed, and then they were harvesting the rice. And when the water was flowing down, they were planting wheat into the same place. And through this, they had like mycorrhiza, like increasing. I don't know if you have any like also example, or and I was also wanting to maybe open the floor like for small discussion with also Indian friends or maybe some more people that knows better on this method. Thanks.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Murugan.
So I think I can respond, Hans. Yeah, that's good. So the ridges and furrows is the common method the agronomist suggests for any high-value horticulture crops, as well as from a traditional conventional method of using the water for irrigation. So if we do irrigate in the furrows, I think it saves a lot, and in terms of water use efficiency, also it gets improved. That is one that is quite common in today's context. Any crop you go for, even with the drip irrigation or high-end technologies, so people use this ridges and furrows. And when we come back to the deep tilling, I think it's nothing but breaking the subsoil hot pan, as you rightly said, to make sure that the in situ moisture conservation happens. So this practice is commonly being done once in a year. It's not for every crop cycle. It has been done once in a year to break the subsoil hot pan. Because here, I think we are not using very heavy machineries in the fields. For example, in the context of West or US, I think we use very heavy machineries, and there is a high soil compactness. And due to that, maybe they do the deep tilling. But for us, I think it's more on the water conservation when we do the deep tilling, at least once in a year, to make sure that we break the subsoil hot pan and ensure there is an in situ moisture conservation. So that is how typically even in the mostly in the watersheds, when we take up these measures as a kind of a mandatory measures for the catchment area, because there the erosion is going to be very high, and the ridge always faces the music, even though we have the high rainfall. So to cut short the discussion part of it, yes, these two practices, even till today, it is prevalent across the country of doing the deep tilling once in a year to make sure that we have a better in situ moisture conservation. And the cultivation happens in ridges and furrows, which really helps. There are different methods like broad bed and furrow and things like that, so there is a bit of an improvisation. But then, from a traditional flooding irrigation, we are just moved on to the furrow irrigation technique. So that's how people still practice the ridges and furrows. Just wanted to confirm from the Indian context. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murugan. I think that is good to hear. I mean, all of us, certainly these 2 weeks, are also concerned about COP16 on biodiversity. And we have raised the issue that rainwater is critical to improving biodiversity in various settings. And that's exactly what is also happening with the agricultural example that deep bed farming and yourself, Dr. Murugan, are just emphasizing. So very good. And probably a good way as a last last example to move to the last presenter, Mr. Harish Daware of the Watershed Organization Trust, of which he is the deputy director. Of course, the water has been there already for quite some time. Since 1993 they exist, but of course before that there was a project which was undertaking restoration of the watersheds, Indo-German watershed development it was called initially, in Maharashtra. Nowadays, of course, even though their headquarters is still in Pune, Maharashtra, they're working in many other states in India, some 7 it seems, looking at watershed development initially, and then now sustainable agriculture, integrated water resources management, sustainable livelihoods, women development, and you cannot imagine everything to uplift the community. Dr. Dwara, it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Nice to see, and thank you very much for this opportunity to share this small presentation. Nice to see some of our old friends on the platform with whom we met before, and it was very nice to hear from other two speakers the innovative ideas. In my presentation, though it is not about any innovation or specific treatment or idea, but it is about the approach that our organization, Watershed Organization Trust, is following since its beginning, and modified this approach also as per the need of the time. So I'm going to tell you a story of the rural India, mainly arid and semi-arid regions, drylands, drought-prone regions, where the communities' resilience was built through ecosystem restoration. There are more than 7 million people who are across the more than 7,000 villages, 63 districts, and 10 states of India, mainly central part of India. And this is done through the network of NGOs in India, more than 200 NGOs. And this is the Indo-German Watershed Development Program, through which we started in 1993. And in the last 30 years, we have proven the point that through ecosystem restoration, we can address the problem of water on a sustainable basis. It's not that only recharging the groundwater, but managing the aquifers, managing the agriculture, and the other thematics also who are interconnected with the water problem. So I would like to play a small AV on the journey of this 30 years. How
ज्या वेळेला सुरुवातीची परिस्थिती जर सांगायची ठरली तर या गावाला पाणी पहिल्यापासूनच शॉर्ट होतं. पाऊस अवेळी केव्हा जेव्हा वाटेल तेव्हा पाऊस पडत होता. तसं पाहिलं तर या पावसाची परिस्थिती अशी पडायला लागला तर एक 2-2 दिवस पडायचा, नाही तर 2-2 महिने वाट पाहायला लागायचा. ज्या वेळेला पीक पेरणीचं टाईम होतं किंवा शेतामध्ये जायचा टाईम होता त्यावेळेला पाऊस नसतो, आणि ज्या वेळेला नको त्यावेळेला तो पाऊस पडतो. आजही तीच परिस्थिती आहे. आमच्या भागात कोणत्याही प्रकारचं पाणी पिण्याची टंचाई होती. आमच्या इथे टँकर चालू होता. च्या अगोदर आमची पोरं, आमची लहान मुलं या डोंगरांवरती घसरगुंड्या खेळत होते. म्हणजे विना अडथळा वरून तर खालपर्यंत यायला कोणताही अडथळा नव्हता. ना CCTV नव्हती, ना ट्रेंचेस नव्हते. ना 95च्या नंतर मात्र या भागामध्ये संस्थेकडून आणि कारखान्याकडून हे काम सुरू झालं. आज जंगलामध्ये तुम्ही कुठेही गेला तर जंगलामध्ये तुम्हाला झाडं तुम्हाला हिरवळ दिसेल. त्या खडकाचं नंदनवन झालेलं आहे.
nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
So this is the story, means in any of the villages of the 7,000 villages, this is the story of any developing country. Means when we started and decided to ensure the food security in India, means intensive agriculture was there. Green Revolution came, and slowly aspirations of people were increasing, and that naturally led to the degradation of the ecosystems that we have, and it causes the deforestation, over exploitation of the resources like groundwater. Means majority of the India is now electrified, and exploitation of groundwater is being done heavily. Means if you see, there are places where the groundwater is as deep as 500 feet, 600 feet also. So this degradation, consequences of this ecosystem degradation can be seen as a effect on the climate, that is change in climate, increasing temperatures, the water shortage, deep aquifer waters, and loss of the livelihoods in the village. Because of this degradation, means people have to migrate to the cities, that is displaced migration. This really leads to the loss of vegetation and biodiversity. And this is the story of any village where the degradation starts. And it happens over the decades. And it takes also decades to So how this restoration of such ecosystems is done? It is very simple approach that community comes together to do the soil and water conservation, water harvesting, reforestation, adopt the sustainable agriculture practices, pasture development, reforestation, and they revive their ecosystem services. And for that, this project helps them, and it takes around 3 to 5 years to revive the entire ecosystem, which they maintains or sustains the results. Then it leads to the enhanced resilience to the climate change, enhanced governance structure within the society or that ecosystem, security of water, food, sustainable livelihoods, and better quality of life. So this is the change of story that we expect from any project where we do work. It may take 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, depending on the size and the position of that village. But this is the approach that we follow. And for doing this, we mainly work in 5 stages. That is, the first stage is to regenerate the landscape and ecosystems. And second is to increase the availability and efficient use of our management of the water. Third is the improving the agriculture productivity as well as livelihood opportunities. It is not that only agriculture, but the agri-allied activities as well as off-farm livelihood options. Means unless we diversify the livelihoods within village, there will be pressure on the natural resources that are developed. So, and empowering women. Women are at the center of each program. And the fifth stage is the strengthening health, well-being, and of the communities and their institutions. Because what we have observed that how the people could sustain the results that they were done over generations. The main key is the institutions. They work in that particular village or a watershed. So to do this, at the center, there is land and water management. Definitely, water is at the center, that recharging the groundwater or water harvesting through integrated watershed development and enhanced governance structure about the water and biodiversity and ecosystem conservation. But with that means one of our learning is that working only on this aspect is not sufficient, because there are other thematics which are interlinked with this, and unless we work on all thematics themes, it is difficult to solve this problem. So agriculture is the main factor, livelihoods, women empowerment, health, sanitation, nutrition, all these 5 thematic areas are there, which need to be addressed or worked on in any of our projects. So today we will mainly focus on the land and water management, that how it is done. The approach that we follow, it is from rich to health, to make the running water to walk, the walking water to stop, and once it is stopped, then force it to the ground. This is the normal general watershed approach that anyone follows, but at the center there is a community participation, the entire planning implementation, and it is not that it is done here and there. The entire catchment area, whether it is 500, 1,000, 5,000 hectares, whatever the scale, but it is treated right from ridge to valley with various treatments. What kind of treatments it includes, we will see through an AV. It is short AV of 3 to 4 months.
Watershed development is the treatment of the entire catchment area around the village to ensure conservation and regeneration of all its natural resources, especially water.
Watershed development must be done from a ridge to valley basis. Right from the top, you dig continuous contour trenches. As you come lower, on wastelands, you dig continuous contour bunds. On farmlands, you erect farm bunds. Along the drainage line on the rivers, right from the top, you do gully plugs. As you come lower down, nulla bunds, gabion structures and check dams. The idea is to control soil erosion and to control the flow of gushing water. Water that is running, we try to make it walk. Walking water, we stop. Stopped water, we try to force it underground. The idea is to trap and harvest and store rainwater wherever it falls within the area itself. Since the speed of rainwater is controlled and the soil is not washed away, the rivers do not get flooded or silted. Thus, watershed development is an answer to two problems, that of drought and that of flooding.
Earlier efforts of watershed development concentrated merely on water harvesting structures and ignored treating the watershed as a whole. This led to soil erosion and therefore siltation of the structure. While there have been other schemes of poverty alleviation through environmental regeneration, this has been the first large-scale approach where people were not mere beneficiaries but actual owners and implementers of the project. They helped themselves by regenerating the environment they lived in.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the approach that is followed, and for this we use the tool called participatory net planning, in which each and every owner within that watershed is involved in the planning process, and land use planning is done with every individual stakeholder. Various treatments like water absorption trenches, bunding, vernacular, loose water structures, check dams. So they all are planned and implemented over the years. So we can see some of the pictures of these treatments which are done in the watershed. But after doing all this, what is the more important is that demand side management. Once the groundwater is recharged and water is available, there is a tendency to increase the productivity of agriculture through irrigating the fields, and that increases the demand, and again it can result into the overexploitation of water, and if there is no balance between the supply and demand, then again there will be water scarcity in the village. So water stewardship, that is governance structure within the water, is very critical, and for that crop water budgeting is done through the village institutions. That is, they learn how to monitor the groundwater and how to manage the groundwater through adoption of various water efficient systems like drip irrigation, micro irrigation, soil moisture, in situ soil moisture conservation. So various techniques and rules and regulations communities are decide to follow for demand side management, which is very critical what we do. That is the next step. And through once it is done properly and through all thematic areas, we can see the tremendous impacts in the village they can experience. And In last 30 years, working with the, more than 7,000 villages, we could do such impacts in the village. Due to time constraint, I will not go into the detail of each and every, but there are some case stories which I would like to share with you. This is the impact on water in one of our watershed, which was implemented from 1995 to 2000, for 5 years. So here we can see how the groundwater behavior in this particular watershed of 1,500 hectares. You can see the increase in groundwater table as well as the rainfall in every particular year. Rainfall, average annual rainfall is only 400 millimeters, near 400 millimeters in this watershed. And you can see the impact of the structures done from ridge to valley. The water levels are increased almost by 4 meters, and even in the water load deficient rainfall years also, people could sustain the groundwater levels in this village. Through various treatments, we can do around 1.1 trillion liters of water harvesting or recharge of groundwater in the area of around 1,100, 1,000 acres of land. So the next slide tells about the impact on the income from agriculture. Here we can see of the same watershed from 1996 to 2009. We can see the increase in income from agriculture from 10.61 to 55.9, almost 5 times this income is increased from 10.651 million rupees to 55.9 million. This is the example of one watershed, but there are many cases. We can see the photograph with how ecosystem regeneration is done, how the plantation and grasslands are revived. This is the forest land, common land of this Perewadi watershed. The picture is from 1996. After doing all the trenching and plantation work, this is the picture of 99, and we can see this is the latest picture of 2023. The entire ecosystem is renewed, and the generations have maintained their watershed since last 30 years. So this is the one more thing impact our research team has studied, that on the land surface temperature. So we can see the same area of the Rewari watershed. We can see the land surface temperature is reduced by 2.2 degrees centigrade from 1996 to 2021 of that particular watershed. After saying this small AV, we'll conclude.
Every 5 years, you have 3 years where the rain does not fall. The water would run away. So within about 2 to 3 months after the rains, there was no water in the village. You could only take one crop, which was in the summer months, in the Kharif season. After that, so they had to migrate for works and livelihoods.
So after half a year traveling on the Pathar of the whole of Maharashtra, I looked down on this watershed. Beautiful, perfect desert, no water, not the tree, not the grass. I said, this is the place we can do something. Now, if you cannot start from zero, what's the use of it?
We started doing a series of continuous contour trenches, water absorption trenches. Along the rills and the rivulets and the streams, we put a series of structures, water harvesting structures like check dams, gabion structures, earthen nullah plugs, gully plugs. On the lands, we put compartment bunding, we bunded all the fields, created enough of obstacles to basically catch rainwater wherever it fell, to slow it down and force it underground.
सुख म्हणजे हे पाणलोटचं काम, पाणी वाढलंय खूप आणि उत्पन्नही वाढलंय, सगळ्या गोष्टी आनंदात चालू आहे गावच्या आता.
The people who had to migrate in the past now are staying back home. They are able to earn their living here. Their children don't have to leave this place to earn a living. That's here. Once you do watershed development in an integrated manner, and if you do this as a community, it is like being part of a rising tide which lifts all boats. When people regenerate the environment they live in, they also transform their lives and regenerate their rural economies and livelihoods.
So after doing the work on ground, means it could influence the government policies at national and state levels. After Indo-German program, government of India has launched various flagship programs on watershed development in India, which covered almost all states, and various different models and pedagogies which were established under this project. They are also included in the government policies. So that's all. So sorry for I hope I could complete within my time, but it was a little delay. But we can go for question and answer.
Thank you, Harishji. Very nice presentation. And of course, the little videos in between also give an easier picture of what you were all trying to achieve and what you managed to achieve in raising the groundwater levels, retaining rainwater in the landscape, etc. Of course, it takes time, and all the work that we do takes time. So right from the beginning of this session with Giulio and then Isaac and then you, Harish, it's community participation, engaging the community, clarifying what your purpose is, and then ultimately getting people together to start doing it, applying it. And then you gradually see the difference happening. And of course, the farmers see it very quickly. Even though the results in terms of production increase may not be so fast, at least it takes one season, they see that, already in the beginning, the quality of their crop is improving. And then, of course, there are many unseen things, like many of the biodiversity aspects are not being recorded per se, because we look at the crops that we grow and we look at the water that is being retained and is available for crop production. But do we also measure how many different species of insects, of animals, of others, plants, etc., are there? Not so evidently. But anyway, that is also happening because the water is the source of all that life. Anybody who has a comment, maybe Jos, if you're there. Yes, he is putting something in the chat.
Yes, I'm there.
Please,
of course, I'm there.
Make a short comment because you're the one doing it all the time as well in your area.
Yeah. I'm happy to see when Harish when presenting. I'm happy to see the old people, the Crispin Lowe and Marcela D'Souza of Water. I used to meet them in 2008 or so. So I'm so glad to see the work of Water. And before that, I would like to know one thing. In the sand dams and the intervention from the Malawi, I was looking forward a picture of water well. It's true that our focus is on the well recharging. So while recharging our activities like through the sand dams or through the agriculture, the practices. So how it's reflected in the water wells. So I was looking forward that, but in this case, the water case, this the final one, the Harish presented, it's crystal clear. It has come up. But I was looking for how in Malawi or in other places, when in the sand dams cases, how it is reflected, how this water harvesting reflected the water wells. So I was looking forward. Anyway, hopefully they will be able to give later.
You want to comment on that, Harish? Not necessary.
Yeah,
not necessary.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Maybe everybody can turn his camera on and we can take a picture, a group picture.
You want to take a picture? Okay.
Yes. With everybody. Yeah, big smile. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's for the record, no doubt.
And then if you can check the QR code to give your feedback on this webinar. It's very useful for us to know what was good, what we have to improve. So yeah, please just check the QR code and give your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to answer to Jos's question. I will get a picture from Sri Lanka. We had, of course, Sri Lanka is an irrigation culture as well. And it was quite clear that, the irrigation setup was constructed in such a way that, next to the small dams here and there would also be wells, maybe 20, 30 meters away from the bund, where people would be able to collect their their drinking water. And that worked very well. Of course, it depends a little bit on the type of soil that you have in a particular area, but usually when you have a water body nearby and you are able to restore it through a sand dam system or whatever, you will automatically, as Julio explained, also raise the water levels in the nearby bands and in the nearby sides of the river. So that works. That works. And actually, the example that I gave of Borjwada in Maharashtra, that was also one thing that we did, riverbed filtration. That was one of the things that was implemented there. Okay, so I think we're coming to the end of this session. I would like to thank all the participants in the first instance that have joined us here, and then, of course, in particular, our friends from India, from Africa, Malawi, and then, of course, from Italy, who have given very nice presentations, which hopefully, when Marion is able to send the presentations to you as well, which hopefully will also be useful to you in your work in promoting further rainwater harvesting aspects relevant to the projects that you're undertaking. So I think it was very useful, very nice, and again, an example of how versatile rainwater and rainwater harvesting can be for the livelihood and well-being of a community. Thank you all very much, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.